When you think about the best animated movies, Puss in Boots might not be the first thing that comes to mind. However, somehow the filmmakers managed to create one of the best animated movies from a Shrek character. If you haven't guessed by now, we're talking about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. It is a sequel to 2011's animated adventure movie Puss in Boots. It is safe to say that the filmmakers have outdone themselves. This film had no right to be this good, especially considering the fact that the original movie was above average at most. But somehow, directors Gerald Crawford and Januel Mercado have managed to create an unforgettable, intense, and emotionally powerful masterpiece. The movie deals with many emotions, but one particular subject is present throughout the movie. That is the subject of morality. So join us as we talk about Puss in Boots and how it explored morality. The film begins with Puss in Boots holding a party in the governor's palace of Del Mar sometime after the events of Shrek Forever after when, after letting off fireworks during a quarrel with the governor's troops, he awakens an earthen giant who attacks the palace and captures some people. He subdues the monster but is suddenly smashed by a bell shortly thereafter. When he wakes up, a doctor informs him that he has only one life left after burning through his previous 8 and advises him to resign immediately. Initially, Puss doesn't pay much attention to the doctor's advice. However, soon he comes face to face with the living personification of death. After his confrontation with death, Puss in Boots realizes that his thirst for adventure has taken its toll. So Puss embarks on an epic adventure to obtain the legendary Last Wish and reclaim his 9 lives. I'm not going to tell you about the entire storyline, but there will be spoilers from the movie starting this section onwards. Enter Death. The strongest on-screen presence in Last Wish was that of the Big Bad Wolf, aka Death, played by Wagner Moura. Despite having limited screen time, Death is one of the most impactful characters in animated movies. His on-screen presence is harrowing. However, he's not merely a character but a sensation and feeling. This character embodies one of humankind's greatest fears, which is death. Straight up, I didn't believe I'd be saying this about a Shrek spinoff, but the continuous conflict between Puss and Death makes us question about our mortality. The movie starts off with a very familiar jolly tone that we all know and love about the Shrek franchise. However, things drastically turn drastically as the Big Bad Wolf appears in the movie. He starts off with a banter with Puss, which soon turns into combat. This final fight is extremely significant. It portrays Puss' near-death experience and how he reacts to it, but more on that later. The entire scene establishes Death as one of the best animated movie villains, and it was just his first few minutes of on-screen appearance. He proves that he means serious business. So Death is a very important part of this movie. Every word he says has significance and creepy wisdom behind it. Death actually teaches Puss and us how to live life. The dark truth about immortality. If you round up a few humans in a room and ask what they'd want as a superpower, many of them will say immortality. However, they might not know that immortality comes with a price. This message is portrayed quite well in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Before Puss came to the realization that he was down to his last life, he didn't care to leave behind a legacy. For instance, he ran away from his marriage with Kitty Softpaws because he was afraid of not being able to commit to such a big responsibility. He thought he'd have an eternity, making him forget the importance of strong relationships. However, when he comes face to face with death for the first time, that single drop of blood is enough for him to succumb to the anxiety of death. This was the near-death experience I was talking about. If you have ever been involved in a serious accident, then you might know how it feels to see death from so close. This feeling of anxiety is portrayed perfectly in this movie in multiple instances. This entire incident took a toll on Puss's life. He finally accepted that there was no way he could escape death now, and he was forced to withdraw from his adventurous life. Despite singing a song about being the greatest fearless hero at the start, Puss fights with cowardice throughout the movie. He actually regrets abandoning Kitty at the altar on their intended wedding day, in addition to his fear of death. Mortality, a blessing. Just like Puss in the movie, many people take mortality for granted. Doing so makes everything pointless. However, many do not realize that mortality is actually a blessing. It gives you an opportunity to live every day as if it were your last. It motivates you to set a legacy for yourself so people can remember you once you're no longer around. Puss in Boots laughs in the face of death sums up the entire message behind the story. Once the story kicks in, this is the quote that'll eventually make sense in conclusion. Once Puss realizes that every adventure from now on could be his last, he gets a different outlook in life, which is initially scary for him, but he comes to terms with it with the help of his newly found family. "Everyone thinks they'll be the one to defeat me, but no one's escaped me yet," is another quote that is so impactful. This quote signifies how everyone plans what they're going to do tomorrow and the day after, while in reality, they aren't even certain if they're going to see the light of day. Dance with a Death. At the conclusion of this movie, Puss is an entirely different character. Sure, he may not have a completely different personality, but his perspective has changed a lot. He now values his relationships and friendships. He doesn't take them for granted. All this leads him to having a battle with death, but this time he isn't running away. He can't embrace that he'll never be able to outrun him because death was waiting for him at every corner of his remaining journey. There are a lot of details to unpack from this fight sequence, but I'll tell you the most important aspects of it. For starters, death traps Puss in a circle of fire and throws him his sword, which means he's reminding him of what he used to be. However, instead of backing off, Puss actually picks up the sword and charges toward death. Before we know it, he's the one who overpowers the big bad wolf and throws him the weapon. This moment features the most powerful quote of this movie. "I know I can never defeat you, Lobo, but I will never stop fighting for this life." This was enough for Death to realize that Puss won't give up this final chance so easily. He would have if he was once the person he used to be, but not anymore. Hence, Death promises to meet again and departs. The entire sequence is extremely powerful and emotional. Due to a particular experience in my past, I understand how it feels to come face to face with death. How pointless everything becomes once you realize that you have wasted a good chunk of your beautiful life. So for him, me and many people like you, it is necessary to keep your mortality in mind. Once you come to terms with the fact that you won't ever know when your time is up, your whole lifestyle will change. You look at the people around you differently and be more humble. You will realize how small we all are compared to the ever-growing cosmos. And that's the main takeaway from this movie story. You must learn how to rely on others because you're no better or worse than them. Not many people get second chances at life, but if you have, then you better make the best of it because unless you're a cat, you won't be getting 8 more of them. I was quite skeptical about watching Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Even after watching the trailer, I didn't feel too hyped, but thank God I picked up this movie. They don't make animated movies like this anymore, and it's refreshing to see such a topic discussed in an animated movie. Now, I actually regret not watching it in a theater. It's simply so perfect and beautifully written. I would love to personally thank the directors and writers of this movie. There's so much stuff going on in this movie, and it all can't be covered by a single person. So do yourself a favor and watch this masterpiece of a movie. And that's it for today. Make sure to comment down below your thoughts on the film. Also remember to like, share, and subscribe for future videos. See you soon.